Hi, this is Stan Becker reporting from Hunter Biden Open Border Venice, June 1st, 2022. Lipstick on the pig, reset, rainbow reset in Venice. Eric Garcetti, Meth Mike Bond in Venice. I'm a 70-year-old non-criminal, been homeless 3 years since before the pandemic in a retaliatory eviction without attorney. Just for a little bit of the backstory, I do have a background, 40-year background as a resident in Venice. Based in Venice, and this, I guess, is why you should not vote for Traci Park, or why, if you do, you should understand things in context. This refers directly to Jamie Paige, Westside Current, which is a real estate blog, and the deception in the Venice Neighborhood Council, and the hideous deception of Traci Park and Justin Gordon and Nico Ruderman. And let's get right to it.
Says nothing about Traci Park Bonin Esquire, Attorney Sutton City Council candidate, elite newcomer. Says nothing about African American quid pro quo death harvest at Horizon Apartments LLC 20 unit HUD HHH Boardwalk Freebie Drug House prostitution. Empowered meth units and several crack house Jack Hoffman, the Venice Hotel felon Carl Lambert, Linda Lux, Steve Clare. Venice Community Housing Corporation and Venice Neighborhood Council deaths at the most serially violent single address in Venice, California year after year after year after year after year. Not a mistake after a while. A cash cow of empowered crime and vicious plunder that includes corrupted Pacific Division LAPD, formerly a force worthy of respect, but effectively disassembled and being rebuilt back worse under poverty pimp criminalord and dirty Roger Mahoney's useful other idiot besides Garcetti and Meth Mike Bonin. Chief Michael Moore's ridiculous hotel rape boy clerk LAPD rape Pacific Division. Before even continuing, let's consider the Traci Park is not once mentioned drug house Becky Dennison Venice Community Housing Corporation, the main white developer poverty pimps who own dozens of Properties. Section 8 Properties was declared a racist organization by Sonia Greenland Reese, granddaughter of Venice of America pioneering black visionary Arthur Reese, who was here contemporaneous with Abbott Kenny himself circa 1905 through 1915, and a history after that was pretty spectacular. Sonia's cease and desistance, a man for a public apology, was it extremely well researched, was extremely painfully well researched and carefully stated in a very specific and powerful document. Tracis off about her having a conversation or whatever marketing element crap, amethyst crap about what might happen in a few more years while ignoring the problem she helped create, the dangers she
amorphous crap
aggressively helped force others to try to live through from a position of safety, and then walked away from even the slightest interest, independently or otherwise, in accountability even on the one single most serial violent address in Venice, where she wants to be a city council of Los Angeles council person, and for this district she is the most willfully disconnected, dangerously deceptive,
Gary Stewart, Venice High School,
viciously censorious, ghettoizing liar we've had up to bat in quite a while, which is quite an accomplishment considering the hollowness of what leaks out of the sewer that is the corrupted rubber stamp of Venice Neighborhood Council. Luckily, my friends, none of this amounts to spurious allegations. It is so heavily multiply sourced, and its documentation approach got the evidence is clearing.
Multiply sourced.
Overwhelming of incredible abuse and incredible theft. Traci hasn't defined the problem or the causes and conditions, which includes herself, so it's going to be impossible for her to provide a meaningful solution except to her own desire to be a first-time politician and land a six-figure job in the community. She's a new resident, having proved only a striking leadership fail and then a refusal to have a discreet private meeting to see if she could be at all helpful or respond any private manner, just to be informed, because we didn't even know who she was, but we found out very quickly. Because Horizon Health Action Coalition, after being gaslighted, gangstalked, battered, banned, shadow banned, restricted on a 70-year-old non-criminal 42-year accomplished local with more views, $600,600.
600,000 views, 2 songs.
Views on 2 songs in about a year about this material. Plus I started in Horizon Health Action Coalition, however awkward and iconoclastic my traumatized field reports are since before the
like this one.
pandemic in this homeless lockdown violence I've been reporting accurately and honestly in trying to survive, and the cruelty that I've experienced and the life-changing permanent damage that I've experienced is an absolute blessing of grace from Jesus Christ compared to how I saw them take apart Susan and Janet, how I saw Daryl and Christopher die. Yes, gay in black. Yes, Miss Mike Bonin doesn't care. Yes, that race bathing is just marketing element for crack house Jack Hoffman, who Traci Park Bone and will never mention who's the key Venice community housing person, or Venice v Hotel felon Carl Lambert, Venice Community Housing Corporation, who Traci Park Barn and will never mention, or Dirty Roger Child Rape Mahoney, who's the least partner service provider for Venice Community Housing Corporation, which Traci Park Bowling and will never mention, nor Felicia Adams Kellum, the poverty pimp spikes model at $400,000 a year that's created more homelessness. 400,400
Nashville snow leopards.
Oh, a year, that's a 4 plus 100,000 a year. I get about 10 or 11.
I'm 70.
On disability Social Security after working physical labor and having 5 orthopedic surgeries and never being on welfare or food stamps or anything, so take me like 40 years at least. She gets
It's nothing, I'm a grit.
$40,000 a year. Big raises while the suicide cluster that Steve Clare's Venice Community Housing Corporation explodes into more deaths, several dozens of severe inspection violations. All this is ignored.
Courtney Kanagi.
When people in fear and with great respect finally approach a Venice Neighborhood Council meeting, they see Venice Chamber of Commerce poverty pimp George Francisco next to Linda Locks and Ira Kozlow. Giving you 40 or 50 seconds at the mic and you're scared to death, and you've already talked to these people discreetly on the side and said you didn't want to be in public, you just wanted these women.
Thank you for taking that.
Safe, you just wanted a door locked like they all have, and they shame you and blame you and beat the S*** out of you for years. The cardiograph all these Venice paparazzi hollow events under the V sign. We had Captain Setzer and Chief Moore and all these police dancing like Disney characters. His Francisco choreograph. Then we got the bridge house, we got ripped off, we got lied to, we got more crime, we got our police destroyed. Where was Traci Bonin? Where was Traci Park? Where was Nico Ruderman? Were any of these starlets who get a few bucks and go on social media and instant heroes sit down and talk to them to find out how vacuous, ignorant, and arrogant about it they are? Your killers. Venice, it's you. We expect a boardwalk hustler, meth addict weasel to be just that. What else do you expect of Ed?
I have no home. My last
But the trial transcript shows that he twirled the dead privates of his victim in victory and videoed it as if he was Hunter Biden. Open border Venice, that kind of sickness, that's Mike Bonin's
psychopathy. Endemic.
Personal crowd, that's Eric Garcetti's personal crowd. His mommy just had to hire a lobbyist because it looks like his ambassadorship is in trouble because of sexual assault predators on his personal staff he knew about. So when I talk about an endemic of sexual perversion and a pedophile protection racket who's been sanctioned by Rome, Dirty Roger Mahoney being in charge of least partner provider services, and there's tons of deaths, tons of injuries, tons of patient drops, continents of tenants and staff disappearing, I get to be the ostracized, ignored, censored problem by this new pylon of pimp, which is Jamie Paige, a pimp on arrival, never saying who financed her, but we know talking to Traci Park you've got a real estate pimp talking to a real estate poverty pimp lawyer, and you think that's the news. Make your choice. And then you have Nico Ruderman completely willfully disconnected. He opened his mouth myth back on and broke his glass door. He's so freaked out for his kid and his wife, but
force others into it.
He's cool, he's vicious, he doesn't care about the people who are unprotected. He's forced into violence. He just disappears, just like Brad Neal White, private developer, created this homeless industrial complex in the business investment district that expunged felons, adding even more crime and expense to our streets. And then his kid, his son, oh my god, this is horrifying.
Abby Scher, Steve Clare.
This is horrifying. You know, I don't have personal enmity for these people, even though I should. You know, I understand they're humans and they have their own pressures as business people, and Brad was
not this one
honest with me about Steve Clare's thefts. At one point, you know, there's a side to him that's human and humane, and I did not want to see him hurt or his family hurt, and this pains me.
Reverse flash. Mike Bonin likes
tremendously.
flash.
It makes me physically sick because I'm out here in the streets to tell you that his son was murdered. His son and his girlfriend were murdered by the homeless people and gunfire, but this Violence that we've been talking about, the strategized intentional violence that these white developers use so they can just expand their disease subculture and justify any kind of brutality in the arrogance of thinking that they have an oath to use their superior knowledge, that they know better than us, they know better than the black person, they know better than the poor
Traci.
person. They're the masters of chaos, they're the masters of organized chaos and deception. The cruelty is merciless at the street level, and Traci Park bonding is so far away from the street level. Her
Excuse me for asking discreetly and quietly,
fake tough on
Traci.
time crime talk is ridiculous. She's not tough on crime, she is the crime. Her silence in the face of who really runs Venice by the numbers, as you will see by the documented numbers, as you
Rhino Records in the 80s.
we'll
Gary.
see extrapolating out into who controls what the big money circles, who they are, what they produce, who they censor, who they feature.
Who they censor, who
What
they
the spin
feature.
is I'm speaking up with the message control, and the memory full individuals have to stand up when they bring a bondage peddle narcissist, sex addict, drug addict with a gun and tell the
Me and Gary
world
Stewart.
he's an artist through CBS in my skate park is right here. This affects me. They get what they get, they get what they get. I'm a citizen, not a subject. I'm not putting up with normalizing child
And Bill Martin and Camille.
rape, with normalizing sexual assault of vulnerable tenants, with normalizing the ghettoizing and crushing of blacks in the name of black power. It's wrong. I stand against it. I was a Democrat for
Liberty Hill Foundation Skirball tribute for Gary
decades,
Stewart.
as was former President Trump. And Candace Owens was a young woman who I am admire and learn from and inspired by, but no more. And I'm not ashamed to tell you I've bled in these streets while
Dead 3 years, Gary
you've
Stewart.
acted like you're the compassionate voice of the rainbow reset.
They banned me on time for
And
this
when your
election.
pimp demonstrations are over, all that's left is the broken glass that people like me sweep up so that the tourist rich and the street people poor and everybody in between them can walk across my street and not bleed as I have bled, because at 70 I have to believe that this is my street, either in the right to walk up down the street where I've carried diaper bags and other people's children many decades ago and say this is my street, and if you do this here you're coming up against everything inside of me and beyond what I even know I might have, and you push me to that limit and take away my instruments in my life and my ability to work, my ability to shine after I've made history as an artist and a writer. Here you get what you get. I'm where you put me, I'm your creation, but I answer only to Jesus. Put me to the test, bring your strongest, and bring a lot of them right now. Just come from the front for a change. I'm not afraid, I'm not restricted, I'm not going to live or die one more second before or after Jesus wants me somewhere else. Super detectives. Super at hiding. Wendy Eric Garcetti. Drug House Becky Dennison. White BLMLA elite mob Ak Russi violence started to make Hunter Biden open border Venice murder rape culture crime statistics.
I'm not ashamed and I'm not restricted.
Unimpeachable even by vicious Rand Corporation, not a non-profit at all, by the way. Propagandist. Property owner Rick Garvey Rand. Horizon Avenue, Venice. Ed Buck crimes were reported and reporters were savaged mercilessly, gaslighted and shamed, certainly continually endangered, if not simply ignored. Ed Buck. This is essential information to absorb about a narcissist psychopathy so comprehensively empowered that even terror is normalized with jailhouse mentality tactics and techniques and wet work stooge enforcers in the street.
Craghouse Jack Hoffman.
Guess what? Multi-millionaire private developer monopoly player poverty pimps don't have to play nice. They can pay off time the rapist, or rather weasels, or not even have to pay them off. Just the
Tom the rapist.
promise of a pat on the head and a little hope, and the curly-headed white god owns the vibe. I'm walking around with a crack house Jack Hoffman playing Dumb and Dumber while these massive criminals suck the spirit and soul of the once vital neighborhood. The deep endemic psychopathy that would have a protected social justice warrior, even endorsed personally by Jeffrey Epstein, Clinton Foundation spokesperson Hillary Wright, here giving him incredible big money Democrat Party and credibility, and this was while he was still sex trafficking vulnerable black from recovery meetings from the last chance these people had desperately to try to put
Not a racist, Meth Mike Bond and Ed Buck partner.
themselves into the light after unbelievable abuse and peril in their lives, and these people were cherry-picked, sex trafficked, giving methadone, personally injected with methadone and 2-methadone.
Methadone. We found the NASCAR news, FBI.
Paralysis into death, panic intentionally, and killed in series over and over again.
Have your people call my people. Ed Buck
Let's
was
focus
reported.
Traci Park. Let's focus Justin Gordon, because this isn't an anomaly. This is an endemic psychopathy that BuzzFeed covered carefully in their three-parter about queer elite predators. And
Got that, Justin?
when you think that crack has Jack Hoffman is very much a recovery Google predatory here as he sells condos and pictures a dynamic change marketing element in concert with felon partner Carl Lambert's pitching a new renaissance marketing element, and what you get is the same old power player poverty pimps, the same old ghettoizing racists, the same old pervasive rich white businesses that
See my music videos. These are
don't
stills.
care. It's okay with me that they're rich, it's okay with me that they're white, it's okay with me that they don't care. That's all their rights as Americans. But when you pitch and pimp race,
Myth Mike Bonnet and his digital media
baiting,
market
copied, spewing
husband.
viciousness that kills gays, blacks, Mexicans, older seniors who are white, Jews, and people who love Jesus Christ, because we're dealing with some very, very dark characters. There's
Marta Every took that picture.
only one color,
today.
actually. There are two colors. There are two colors in Venice politics: green for money and red for blood, and the people who have the former will shed huge amounts of the latter.
And yellow for cowardice.
Still expect the prerequisite adoration you need to give to a narcissist, or you'll have your social capital, your business, and your life here destroyed. Or you can play like Jamie Paige and be a sudden reporter with a sudden news vehicle called Westside Current. That's just another Yo Venice Linda Lux Steve Claire racist white poverty pimp real estate blog. That's what Traci Park is distracting you.
Right by Hollywood Community Housing
From
Corporation.
hundreds of millions into billions gone in crime, vicious crime that she's covering up with shovelfuls of crap about what she's going to do and about the legal protocols and what she's going to
Who knew?
administrate when she has a six-figure job after 3 or 4 or 5 different expensive cosmetic makeovers just since Thanksgiving, while censoring me
Well, if you ask.
and endangering me and subjecting me to more critical vicious violence. And we will show you that recent videos of the broken glass, the meth smoking, and other things that I've been too decent to want
Thank you, Jesus. I couldn't have edited
to
that.
even mention because of their disgusting nature to this community. Never mind, have to show you because it's traumatizing and retriggering if you're halfway sane and halfway human. So I don't have
Sneak attack from behind, of course.
to worry, because the Venice population doesn't have that problem. There are 3/4 way pimp and the other quarter is willful ignorance. Except Stan Becker songs for the best people in the world.
Staff person was watching as I
Stan
was
Becker songs
unconscious
fans. Hey,
bleeding.
I was the last person to know and believe, but
Staff
I'm not
person.
even kidding. Good God Almighty, Buffalo to Venice Beach, mean and restless, building back a better new normal. Mockingbird sings how many Venice community housing personnel have been fired since those came out in 600.
You're welcome, Venice.
Oh, people have viewed them, and I've been tortured further and beaten further and kept from food and kept from gas and kept from help and kept from hope intentionally in these streets directly from
Here's what happens when you make rock and roll history.
Felicia directly from Becky directly from Dexter directly from a potpourri of St. Joseph's Dirty Roger Mahoney pimps directly Nico Ruderman and hides Traci Park, hides Justin Gordon as a filthy propagandist, a vicious, censorious, ostracizing weasel. He's every bit that Steve Claire's suicide cluster poverty pimp.
Nico Ruderman voted for him. Traci Park voted for him. Because they had their eye on the ball. Is there more? This is Karski.
It's really diminishing that I have to deal with
Karski.
such low-level pimps, but the nature of pedophile protection rackets and other criminal protection rackets is they keep on putting just like
Karski.
to keep on changing staff. These Venice neighborhood council people and Jovan is organized, Julie Del Mar, the Jamie Pages, the Angie and McGregors, the idiot Nico Antonelli's, all these people who aren't writers. You get a chance to write letters to a real estate blog, and that gets to be the news. The completely corrupted LA Times gets to do high production videos, and Waterboy will
Cover of Good God
Hawkins'
Almighty.
homeless chair, not mentioning that he had to resign in shame, not resenting that he's vicious and violence is documented by police reports and video, not to mention that Carol Sobel race baiting cop hating lawyer keeps on getting featured. Adventist neighborhood council now by Soledad Ursua, just like with her dope, along with deluxe vicious Venice paparazzi Martha Every. IMDb calls Mia
Soledad Ursua, poverty pimp.
racist on social media. From her rich white world of 1 or 2 show business credits, she manages to call a 20th Century Fox first call motion picture studio grip and a 42-year resident here. I wish
A racist to get me more attack.
you'd go to the
again.
boardwalk and ask 100 people if I'm a racist, and then ask 100 people if they know who Mark that Every is.
He gets a Papa visit after the
So
previous
parade flow
Pope
Traci
sanctioned
vote
him.
Traci Park is every bit the vicious, willfully ignorant, cruel face of the Dirty Roger Mahoney sexual assault cover-up stooges she represents that in
How
this
could this
community
get
and you
edited? better. Oh, thank you, Jesus.
People living in the nice neighborhoods, God bless you, but stop forcing other people into grindhouse rad criminal violence death just because you've got armed private protection because Traci bonding.
There's a variant there.
Does not care
It's called
about you.
the
She
Nazi
cannot protect you.
variant.
She did nothing when it counted, when a lawyer stepping up would have mattered in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017,
Got your mask
2018,
on?
2019, 2020, all this year since Thanksgiving.
Needed a lawyer, Traci. It would have taken
Since
just
December
one
1st in
lawyer.
West Side in Westminster
But
Plaza with Tom the rapist casing all the women that continues by the Horizon rape rooms. That brutality continues. There is no outreach. That brutality
UCLA patient
continues.
trial.
Look at the face of a Traci Park. That brutality continues.
I didn't want any part of this.
The seeds of hopelessness gets planted deep, and this is exponentially merciless and brutal because these pimp projects are sowed with weaponized social media, massive coordinated barrages appealing to.
And everybody knows it. I don't
What's
need
honestly
this.
good about people? Appealing to what remains honestly humane and human at the heart of a generous electorate, however bamboozled and hustled and tricked as I myself was, and as my dear departed friend Gary Stewart of Liberty Hills Foundation and my fellow Rhino Records department director during the 80s. Well, that's his experience because he was genuinely compassionate. He wasn't one of these phonies like Nico Ruderman, one of these absolutely hollow, brutal Venice neighborhood council climbers. He was a man of substance and integrity and superior intelligence, surrounded by such a beautiful, caring humility that he stood apart from almost everybody else in show business with his unique sweetness.
This is true.
I was one of the last people he approached, demanded personal company with before his death, which of course was a stunning and ugly and brutal surprise to me, or I would have never let him go. When I held him in my arms as I had never ever done before in the 36 years I had known him, but he was shaking so badly I had to.
DMH head John Sharon, who I've been asking about this for years, he resigned, supposedly pissed off about the bureaucracy or something. His $400,000 a year job as another lease partner, along with Felicia Adams Kelms from St. Joseph's, $400,000 lease partner. Okay, plus Becky Dennison, plus all the budgets, okay? So that's millions a year just for these couple of people. Let's look at the homelessness they created from that 120 unit perfect microcosmic example of what the highly vaunted permanent supportive housing first, harm reduction and all that stuff, wraparound services, that's a hustle, it's a lie. PBS did a special, award-winning special several years ago called Politics, Profits, and Poverty or something like that, and the last half of it had to do with a poverty pimp homeless industrial complex bust. Although it wasn't called a homeless industrial complex, I think Ed Ring from California Policy Center came up with that one. I've just been calling it a poverty pimp and been asked to be been corrected on my tone many times by a lot of people in pink hats who are sexual assault cover-up stooges who never stood up or cared and forced people into these enforced relationships, snared into this forced relationships just to get a Section 8 HUD house. And they create this dysfunction and this distraction. And the Surfside cocaine cartel and the Hotel Irwin sex drug trafficking and racism. And they hired Jamie Paige as a real estate blogger to say that's an artful vision when they big power money hotel pimps with the white elite kids maskless for a year now take public parking spots because of the pandemic. You need white rich kids nose to nose outdoors too. So I'm vacillating because I have too much information and too much trauma about the sickness, the selfishness. And so, yeah, they create this petri dish, this strategized method canvas. We'll show you exactly how and where and who and why and what happened and what the criminal stats are. And money spent, and the big poverty pimp projects that came. And the theatrical incursion of Chief Michael Moore, Eric Garcetti, gay mafia pimp boy, because that's what's, somebody who loved the police and put my own body, life, and soul in danger for the police. Is police close to me? There always has been, including my very, very close family. That's stuff I can't talk about. You know, and for me to say this about these officers, these new, well, let's get back to this.
Held him in my arms as I had never ever done before in the 36 years I had known him, but he was shaking so badly I had to hold him in my arms in front of Drug House Becky Dennison's Venice community. Housing Corporation on Rose. And though Justin Gordon and Traci Park and Jamie Paige and Nico Ruderman and these people 30 and 40 years younger than me who just arrived here will continue to riddle, kill me, ostracize me, and
Gary intervened.
Essentially effectively kill me because science tells you the decades homelessness shortens the human being, and that would include a 70-year-old non-criminal, non-drunk, non-drug addict accomplished local with spiritual integrity and honest history of community service for free that eclipses all of these pimps put together on their best possible days.
Plus, I'm a boogaloo master certified.
But back to Ed Buck, how many more were brutally killed after reports? Horizon Apartments LLC, Traci right here. Traci, the most seriously violent single address in Venice.
Oops, Traci.
How many tenants pass through the 20-unit building? How many case managers? How many hundreds or thousands of billings for what? Buy home with the results of what?
How many, Traci and Jamie? How many?
How many dead? How many passed in that suicide cluster? How many indigenous, gay, and black harvested cruelly, viciously, unaccountable by tactic? We follow the money. Traci Park Bonin is a dangerous phony.
Justin, can you count?
And brutally killed. Ed Buck, Eric Garcetti, and Meth Mike Bonin in Dirty Roger Mahoney Project Rape, Key HUD HHH fraud hustles. Kept quiet.
Can you count fingers, Justin? Can you count?
More black men were tortured and killed.
Guess which one, Justin?
Poverty Pimp Weasel Jamie Paige Westside Current Real Estate Blog is not the news.
It isn't?
TT thank you for reviewing these. These are done extemporaneously by dictating in heat stroke temperatures, frankly, in a 20-year-old van that they won't allow me to keep legal. I'm an extreme limited. Income, Social Security, Disability in an intentionally artificially hypergentrified Silicon Needle Beach environment where these crack house Jack Hoffman and Carl Lambert, Steve Clare White private developer poverty pimps play monopoly, and they put forth this pristine Venice wonderful marketing elements of suns and surf because God is majestic and the ecosystem is profoundly beautiful, and a great blessing to all of us on this planet, the seagoing mammals and the wonderful Los Angeles County lifeguards, and we adore receiving hundreds of thousands of people and are kind to them. But let me tell you, the vicious Hotel Irwin racists, the vicious Surfside cocaine cartel, which is now the Winston House, it's a huge Australian great white and the ghost of folks they've taken away the ability of a person to buy a simple apple on these streets. They've destroyed the diversity of a community in the name of a helping minority populations who they plunder and destroy cruelly. We have
Rick Caruso, I like your style. Call me.
the names, we have the videos, we have the scientific proof, even from BuzzFeed 3-parter about queer league recovery guru narcissist predators. Their psychopathy is so profound, the arrogance and sickness.
Alex, I'll talk to you or your people anytime.
In a meth Mike Bond and dynastic millionaire hustler is so Grimehouse rat bully violence sick, yet that's who parades a big rainbow pride flag. I'm here to tell you he doesn't represent gay Los Angeles.
Listen to this. This is
people who are as diverse as any other minority. The black population knows, the Mexican American population knows they're going to get some kind of phony little tribute paid for with tax money, in the Hunter Biden open border sex trafficking will continue. The brown people will continue to live, lots of them, in apartments and clean the white man's toilets. No black businesses will be started or helped. No black kids in Steve Clare's Becky Dennison's hustle will ever get a scholarship. Decades and decades and decades of pimp, and there's not one supported black business or black family. It's all marketing elements and hype, and shallow, dangerous, vicious climbers like Nico Ruderman. And anybody who votes for Traci Park is willfully ignorant and a big part of the problem, and hoping that the disaster that they've already forced others to live and die with will not reach their secure, armed, locked elite circumstances that makes them poverty pimp killers. So as you kiss their ass, know that you're enslaving and killing the people you pretend to want to help, because the pimp, my friend, is you. The coward, my friend, is you. The one refusing to take responsibility for preserving our liberty and our rights, and assembling and not leaving politics to a couple of goobers in their bedroom on a Zoom meeting. That's on you, not on meth micro crack house Jack Hoffman, because narcissist abusers do that. They're predators. They're always needing more because they have nothing. Look at what they've created. They've destroyed the
Dilettantes create a vacuum of vacuous...
Brand as they sucked it to own it, it's artless, it's Sunnybrook bad jewelry garage art sales, it's pathetic, it's sad, it shames the legacy of what beyond Baroque once was to the entire world, not just the contemporary art community of Los Angeles. I'm here to bust the message controlling memory hole and tell you you're not interested in art, you're not interested in literature, you're not interested in poetry. Your beautiful children are growing up with cultural humility lessons given by a white dynastic racist poverty pimp who's killing the minorities that do live here. Sonia Greenland Reese knows the black woman who talk up are destroyed like Attorney General, like our district attorney Jackie Lacey. They even went after her husband for having him trying to defend her. That's
Por favor. Hold on, we're here.
what miss my fun and really thinks of blacks, and when you see that big huge gay pride rainbow flag all over Venice all week long, you need to start asking how many of the quote-unquote gay-centric politician people that meth bike barn and does not represent but does pretend to represent, how many of them think that grooming children is okay, how many of them think that's sexualizing young children is okay, how many of them are so absent of critical thinking and intelligence and so disrespected that you would assume that the gay population in Los Angeles are the bigger, larger community.
We work hard.
Decades of lesbian and gay American people with cosign hurting children or wouldn't be aware of the dangers of that if you're going to put the big rainbow flag and you put the American flag in tatters, ripped up arrogantly, because that's the real message of a mess. Mike on it, and Nico Ruderman and Venice Neighborhood Council and vicious Jamie Paige censor is right in on it because that kills. That vicious squalor kills, it protects the real criminals because more methadone and cocaine went through the sex drug tourism than all of the advertise for a criminal vagrant methane put together.
He jumped during my retaliatory eviction.
And those are put together so that they could scare the population into getting several huge massive poverty pimp problems to expand a disease subculture, and we've got it documented, and I'm being
from the parking structures
killed in a car for telling you that.
I'm not fooling around. I've never been fooling around with my work. It's taking what it's taken to get some of it out. I'm really surprised people listen. Is this thing done? I don't even know. I guess it is. So good. Good God Almighty. So that's the Stan Becker Songs YouTube channel. It's Mean and Restless was reported and taken down.
Children is okay, how many of them are so absent of critical thinking and intelligence and so disrespected that you would assume that the gay population in Los Angeles are the bigger, larger community.
We covered this already.
Decades of lesbian and gay American people with cosign hurting children or wouldn't be aware of the dangers of that if you're going to put the big rainbow flag and you put the American flag in tatters, ripped up arrogantly because that's the real message of a mess. Mike on it, and Nico Ruderman and Venice Neighborhood Council and vicious Jamie Paige censor is right in on it because that kills. That vicious squalor kills, it protects the real criminals because more methadone and cocaine went through the sex drug tourism than all of the advertise for a criminal vagrant methane put together.
More methadone went through Surfside.
And those are put together so that they could scare the population into getting several huge massive poverty pimp problems to expand a disease subculture, and we've got it documented, and I'm being
the tough on crime people
killed in a car for telling you that.
The tough on crime people are protecting the real criminals. Thank you. That last part of it was important and germane, because with that big rainbow flag and the precious gift and responsibility of our rights and retaining and maintaining responsibility of retaining and maintaining those rights for every American are always on my mind. And this race baiting, gay baiting, Jew baiting, black baiting, horrific enslavement of people through weaponized digital media, in this dystopian future shock rush has hurt many children, many seniors, and I think that it's fair to judge a community on how they treat their babies and their grandpas and grandmas, on how they treat the precious gift of life, the precious, magical, amazing gift, stinky here and there, a gift of life, you know, and how we respect and love and care for and honor with humility those who wiped our butts and listen to our nonsense. Don't know so much, you kids, you new kids on the block. Don't know so much. You get some of that stuff you think you know. Because a robot. That's another thing. Thank you. Stand back there. For God's sakes, get me out of here. Okay.